Okay, I'm recording too. So whenever we want to get started,
Yep.
this is technically will be the first show.
Right, yeah.
Because the last one didn't really.
Last week was a bit of a practice, but it's always good to get a practice in of something, especially when we were rusty. We did this kind of regularly for a while,
Yeah.
and in college for one summer in particular, we did it just about at least once a week, sometimes more than once a week, and we were good. We were on fire, but then things happened. You got married and all kinds of stuff.
Well, that happened this summer. But,
Yeah, well,
so
there's a
that
lot.
really didn't interfere with that particular
True,
summer you're speaking
but
of.
there was plenty leading up to that. Though.
Right, yeah. But yeah, I mean, we just went our different ways. We both experienced different things, and then we just came back. What was it, like 2 months ago?
Mm-hmm.
About 2 months now, and yeah, I mean, now that your show is, you did your first weekend, and this will be weekend 2 is coming up soon.
Yes, as of right now, in the middle of October, it's October 11th right now on a Wednesday, but I am in the middle of doing Dracula at the Lancaster Opera House. That is going on for this next weekend here, so that'd be the 13th, Friday the 13th. It's going to be a good show. I know something's going to happen. We all have a feeling. The 14th and the 15th at the Lancaster Opera House. Last weekend was our opening weekend, and it was pretty good. It was fun. It's a fun show to do. 'Tis the season. I always wanted to try to do. It's hard to do horror on the stage, but we're creeping people out.
Right,
It's
yeah.
going well.
So I gotta ask, is this hairdo in your face because of the show?
Yeah, yeah. I look like It's unfortunate this is just an audio broadcast, but yeah, I look like a dude from the 1800s. I've got or Thurman Munson. So I'm either from the 1970s or the 1890s.
Right.
You decide. But I have like a mustache that kind of goes like handlebarish, but nothing on my chin, and then these big mutton chop sideburns. So it's an interesting.
So it's not a personal choice. It's
Right,
It's a show
yeah,
choice.
exactly.
Did they know you were going to be able to grow that, or did they say
They
ask you
they-
like, oh, we could
Yeah.
do makeup or
Well, like at the audition, I had a full beard, and they were like, "Would you mind carving out of that full beard
carving
something,
Hey, just
1800s?" And I was like, yeah, "I'll do whatever I need to do for a show, especially if it's only a couple
All right,
weeks."
Well, let's talk about negotiations here.
Right,
If I got
yeah.
a part, I mean, I'll carve into anything.
Right,
If
yeah,
I don't got a
exactly.
part, I'm not carving in.
That's kind of what I implied there. Yeah, for like I'm somebody. I know you like to keep your hair short and that, but I'm somebody who I like to keep my hair at least a little bit
Well, this
bushy.
is the longest my beard's ever been.
Okay, yeah, and you actually got some decent facial hair right
I'm no longer Patches O'Houlihan. I'm actually connected everywhere. I actually shaved the underneath my mustache on purpose because it was getting scraggly.
Okay.
But it does connect.
No, good for you. Looking good.
Right.
Looking good. But
and I've never been able to grow a beard ever. I mean, this is like I said, this is the first time it's actually all connected. It's not really even a beard. It's just more. Hey,
it's like a nice chin strap there.
Right. Oh, the wife likes it. So.
Oh, good. Well, that's the one opinion that
Yeah.
matters.
In this day and age, it's the wife's opinion.
Yeah, it's the wife.
For those of you who don't know, this is our podcast at random. We really didn't do a good intro. We just kind of started talking.
Which
is
the name. Anytime we kind of get trapped into what are we even talking about, we go, well, you know what? That's the name of the show.
That's the name of the show. Right? The bounds we can go to are endless on this show.
We always have an excuse. That's the name of the damn show.
I was going to say, it's random uploads. I mean, hopefully it becomes more of a consistent timing of the recordings, but for now it's really been at random. I mean, now that your show is ending this upcoming weekend, I mean, what's on the horizon? Anything, or just more at random now because you have more time?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we wanted to try to do this like every week, but of course every weekday night I had rehearsals and that, and you're busy on the weekends. You got your other job ushering. Is that right?
Yeah, I usher for the Buffalo Bills. Every time they have a home event, basically.
Yeah, how has that been this year? I mean, there's been some exciting games.
They won both the games I've worked, so those have been fun games. But the team itself, I mean, they're doing it. They're pulling a Buffalo Bills normal. Which I don't know why everyone is so shocked because they won 2 big games. They beat Denver and Atlanta in consecutive weeks, which. I don't know if many people were thinking, hey, we're going to win those 2 games. Most people were probably thinking, hey, we're going to lose those 2 games.
Mm-hmm.
But they won both of them, and then they go into Cincinnati on a rainy, dreary day and really show us the lack of ability in the offense because, yeah, we got 16 points, but, I mean, I think it was 1 touchdown and maybe a few field goals. So it's like, honestly, I've been alive for the whole streak. I mean, it had started in 2000. I've been basically coherent. I'll say it that way.
Right, since because we were born in the early 90s, 91.
Right. We were born when they were good.
When they were going to Super Bowls.
Right.
I basically remember my family fighting over Johnson and Flutie. So I kind of remember the late 90s quarterback controversy, but I wasn't like a full-on fan. I wasn't sitting through entire games. By the time I was old enough to sit through entire games, the streak was well underway.
Oh, definitely. I think high school is when it really, like, I want to say 8th grade high school. Because that's when the Sabres started getting good, too, if you remember.
Right, yeah.
2004, 2005. It's not the lockout. It was the year after.
Okay, so 05, 06.
Whatever the lockout year, the year after the lockout.
The famous 05, 06, like, out of nowhere season.
Yeah,
and then the 06, 07 President Trophy season for the Sabres. But yeah, that was, of course, when you want to talk about the Bills timeline, that was the Lossman, the J.B. Lossman,
Edwards,
Trent Edwards
years.
Yeah, exactly. Those were our choices. People were getting into fights over which one of those was the chosen one, and none of the above.
Well, it's funny because we've been through this before. I can count twice this kind of or 3 times. Sorry, this kind of season. So 4 overall. We've had the year where we started 5-1 with Edwards, and then he got a concussion.
Right. Yeah.
Still played another, or we started 4-1. Then he got a concussion, and they won another game after that. But then they went to Toronto and absolutely pooped the bed.
Right.
And then they went downhill from there.
Yeah, the main thing I keep saying is we've seen this movie way too many times because I know the next thing you're going to say is the year when, I think it was our junior year of college when Fitzpatrick started out of the game.
Beat the Patriots. Yeah. They started, I believe it was 4-1 again. I think that's the famous record the Bills start at. And then Rex Ryan figured out the spread offense. We actually won a game in Toronto, I think, that year too. It was, we lost it because it was the first game after Fitzpatrick signed an extension. I think that was what it was. Then we had last year, honestly, which is shocking, but we started 0-2, then we won 4 games, so we were 4-2, and then it's just like you said, it's a perfect analogy.
We've seen this movie way too many times. We should
it's
know
not
how
a good movie like Dodgeball or Liar Liar.
Right, yeah,
it's a bad movie like I don't know, Jack and Jill.
We should know how this ends. We know all the little twists and turns. We know all the red herrings in this mystery. We've seen it before, so it's kind of like until they get to more like 8 wins. I don't know. What would you say?
I would say 8 wins before Thanksgiving would be a definite,
8 wins before late November.
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, 8 wins at the end of December is what we've done. Again, you've seen this movie. This is exactly we end up 8-8 or 7-9.
Right, it's like, wow, guys, I can't wait to have another 7-9 season to miss out on, a Sam Darnold from USC or some other good.
This is the year to start being good, right?
Right, yeah. When
you got a Tyrod Taylor, who everyone knows is not a franchise quarterback.
Yeah, at this point, sadly, I had hope for him, just like I had hope for all them other guys.
Chance. I mean, you can't just downright say absolutely not. But, he's not this franchise. You got Peterman, who we really don't even know, but a lot of people are saying, well, if he fell to the 5th round, there's a reason why he did. So it's like, well, he hasn't had a fair chance. And then you go, okay, we're going to go 8-8, 7-9, 6-10. We're just good enough to not get the top pick, or we're just bad enough not to make the playoffs.
Exactly,
that's the Bills, and it's an option.
That's why the streak has gone on so long, because there's been teams that have been tremendously worse. There was the Dolphins team that only won 1 game, and then I think it was either the next year or the year after that, they randomly make the playoffs. In our same division.
Last year, they made the playoffs.
Yeah, and then last year they made the playoffs too, so they can't...
by beating us the last game.
And we like to use the excuse because we have one of the best dynasties ever, the Patriots, and that. Well, so do the Jets and the Dolphins, but they have both made it way more recently.
Right.
They've
honestly,
slipped in there.
I don't even know who the next worst streak is, because I know Oakland ended theirs a few years ago.
Right, Detroit had a really bad one. I think theirs was 1 year less than us. Theirs was 98. But then they finally, once they got Stafford, because they had an imperfect 0-win season, which it's Well, some people honestly were like, well, at least the Bills aren't like that. No, I kind of want to be like
Yeah,
that
it's
because
like,
then we could get
no,
the first
see,
over.
our luck would be the year they do that would be the year there's absolutely no
Right,
quarterback whatsoever. There's been Miles Garrett is like what's your available.
Right,
Not
yeah.
that, and it's funny. A lot of people are going to be like, well, why didn't we pick up one of the guys this year? It's like, I don't know. It looks like finally. I mean, we might not make the playoffs this year again, which honestly, but I feel more confident in the direction. Like before with Whaley, and then before him, Buddy Nix, and before that, I don't even know. Is Donahue before Buddy Nix? I don't even. I can't go back that far.
What was the guy who looked like a skeleton?
Dick Durant was the coach.
Yes,
I
okay.
don't know GMs.
Oh,
GMs. Like,
okay.
I don't know. Like I felt like Doug Whaley never had a direction. Like he always just did things.
He was just kind of on the seat of his pants, like this looks like a good move. Oh,
right,
does this.
Well, he's the one who famously made the trade for Watkins, and then we ended up trading him away for.
Right, and everybody was like, "We get it. He's
Graham.
an exciting player. He's going to sell a lot of jerseys." But like, what are you doing? This is not the needs of the team now.
Right, exactly. A wide receiver is not what you trade 2 first rounds essentially for.
Right, unless
and a fourth, I believe.
Unless
too.
he's guaranteed to be like the next Jerry Rice.
Even so,
but you
need the quarterback to get him the ball.
That's
and the
true.
Bills do not, and honestly, the way they're going might not get that next year. And it's like, what are they willing to do to get to that number 1 pick or number 2 or 3 pick? So speaking of football, I guess we can kind of our random segues. No, this is actually a pretty good one. Did you see what the UB Bulls did this past weekend with Western Michigan? I think it was a 71-68 game.
Right, I thought that was a basketball score. I kept seeing the
I
score.
preseason?
I was like, what are they doing basketball early this year? Because that looks like a
7
typical
overtimes. It's I think it's the highest scoring game in FBS history.
Okay. Oh, so overtime doesn't work like sudden death at all.
No,
then so you can just keep piling the score up.
College overtime is what I love. I love college overtime. Basically, each team. First of all, each team gets the ball, so that's always a good start. The second thing is they think they get the ball either the 35 or the 25. That's where they start, and you have a possession. You have 4 downs to get points. If you don't get points, the other team gets the ball, and then after each team gets the ball, so say the first team scores a field goal, the second team scores a touchdown, they win, or if they score a field goal, it just keeps going, and then you keep going back and forth until someone scores and someone doesn't, and then the game's over. And I guess it went to 7 overtimes. There was in the first overtime, one of the Western Michigan players scored a touchdown, and I guess his sister must have thought the game was over because she ran onto the field and started hugging him and everything like that. And then you see the shot of her walking back all disappointed, like, oh, it's not over. Oh crap! But
they didn't get penalized for that, did they?
Right? No, I don't. I would hope so actually because it's fan interference. But So yeah, I mean that was it's crazy to think what sports Buffalo has records in, and obviously now the UB Bulls have the
have
that
the
record.
most overtimes, is that
right? Yeah, well, I think it's the highest scoring game in FBS history at 100, and because there's been a bunch of games that had 100 points scored in them,
but they were
never
a blowout, right?
Right, it was a blowout on one side,
right? Exactly.
So the other side didn't contribute, but this one was 71-68, which
it was still a close game.
139 total.
The thing with college is that sometimes you get completely overmatched schools because they're just completely different programs and different
you have
levels.
A Division
and
I school who the little guys pay them, or they get paid to lose to them, or something.
Right, exactly. Yeah, something crazy like that.
So I actually looked. I know these kind of records. The Buffalo sports teams or players that have records, and the only ones I could really think of off the top of my head right now are I know Bruce Smith has the record for most sacks in a career. I think with 200 or somewhere. In that range.
Yeah, definitely the best.
Because I know he got hit the sack the win the one that broke the record was with Washington, unfortunately. So I remember that people were saying, "Oh, the quarterback just fell just to give him the sack or something like that, just to give him the record." And obviously, the one that comes to most Buffalo Bills fans' minds is the comeback game where down by the most points and came back
at halftime in a playoff game.
Right, in a while, yeah, exactly. And it was, and they also, ironically, this one, I know we're called that random, but I wanted to have some material.
Okay.
The Bills have most points to overcome in a game to tie, and that was against the Denver Broncos. They were down 38-7, and they tied at 38-38. I thought that was interesting.
All right.
What do we got? Let's look here. Fewest net passing yards gained in a season, 14 games. 997. Could you imagine an offense only having 997 yards of passing
That's
yards?
obscure.
Yeah.
And what year was that? Do you know?
I wish I wrote it down, but
but I just love
you know
to
what's
know.
funny? I wrote it down for every other stat, but I don't have it for that one.
I see.
What else do we got here? Fewest yards allowed. We also have the other side of that. We have the fewest yards allowed passing in a 16-game season, which was 1,960, and that was in 1978. So a lot of these are like years before we even knew what a football was, and years before we were even born.
Of course, right.
The fewest punts, which is 0. The Bills have that one. There was the Bills 49ers and game in 1992 where there were no punts whatsoever. It's hard to believe. If a game happened like nowadays where there was no punts, you would think that game would be in the 70s of points because it's like, it's either a turnover or a score. Like, there's no way to get around it. Like, that's the only way there's 0 points. The other one, most touchdowns and kickoff returns in a season, was in 2004. So that one's interesting. The Sabres are not very good at records. They have a bunch of players who have records.
I was going to say, I can think of, off the top of my head, a couple of like individual player type things, but not so much, team.
And of course, we have Scotty Bowman in our history, but he didn't do any of his good stuff with us.
Yeah, every single other franchise.
He has 9 Stanley Cups, and none of them were with the Sabres.
Right, every single
Montreal, Pittsburgh, Detroit. I mean,
every other franchise he's touched has like turned to gold. Even the one franchise where he didn't win a cup, St. Louis Blues, he at least took them to the cup. He at least had success with them. But yeah, he helped the Penguins win cups. He helped the Blackhawks win cups. He helped Detroit have a dynasty. He helped Canadians have a crazy record-breaking dynasty that nobody will probably ever win 5 cups in a row.
What's funny about the Detroit Red Wings and Scotty Bowman, this actually, at random, I remember growing up as a kid going to the library and renting the 96-97 championship movie.
Wow,
video,
okay.
Which is
the documentary on the season, right?
Right, and that was the year they broke their 40-some-odd years.
Okay, right,
not winning the cup because they had been so close.
Yeah, they won
it
with...
They were so good in the 50s.
Yeah, the
60s.
Gordie Howe era. Yeah,
right. And then
40s,
they went
50s, 60s.
Years without making it.
They called themselves the Dead Wings for a while, and then they became Hockey Town in the 90s and 2000s because then they
just started winning.
Yeah, they won all the time. They were the model franchise. I think they won. They made it to the playoffs like over 20 years in a row.
Right. Yeah, I think that last year was the
first year
the first year they didn't make it.
They actually didn't make it since the early 90s.
Early 90s, right. And that got me into like championship DVDs, and I'm actually
you've always had a thing for that. You love documentaries, about like that follows the team from like
30 for 30s. I absolutely
one.
love.
Okay.
I love the championship. A lot of them are on YouTube, and I will sit down and literally watch them on YouTube because I absolutely love I would love to put out one way down the road. Like I know I could. It'd just be very difficult.
Yeah. What are some? Let's talk about that. Like if you had your own like. You were a producer, somebody gave you like a huge budget, and you were like, I'm going to get this made. Like, what would your topic be? What do you think you would want to get into with that? And would you want to direct it yourself, or would you want to hire a famous director? Because a cool thing about the 30 for 30s, a lot of them are famous, like, just regular film directors or TV producers.
They direct their own stuff.
With
the 30 for 30 brand on them.
With the ESPN 30 for 30 brand.
Unfortunately, it's already been made, but I would love to do those 4 years of the Super Bowl with the Bills.
Right, there's been at least 2 documentaries. I know one was called The Missing Rings, and that was like an hour-long documentary about 10 years ago. But then the really good one is The Four Falls of Buffalo.
30 for 30.
The very recent 30 for 30 came out last winter.
Right, and that is... it was so well put together. It puts Buffalo in such a good light. Like even and it's funny. I never knew that people were petitioning the league to say the Bills can't go back.
Right? Yeah, that's crazy.
And it's piss them off, go for 4, or the screen, the chants and everything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but if I had to pick something, I would think something to a big moment in Buffalo sports that hadn't happened. Either it was the first... Maybe... I know there's been one done about the Winter Classic, but maybe a little more in depth. Oh, man. I mean, it's really tough. Like, maybe... You caught me off guard. I know it's that random, but you caught me off guard with that.
All right, yeah. I
think something to tie into Buffalo because it's
right, of course.
Where I'm from.
Yeah, as much as I like other franchises and I got family in Boston, there's been millions of Boston sports documentaries. Not so many in Buffalo because we don't have as many people to
We don't have many things
put things
to
out
do
there,
about,
or
right?
or as many.
Maybe the drought. Like maybe when the drought finally ends, maybe I'll be the guy to direct the documentary about it. Because there's material for 17 years. I mean, there's got to be a way to do it like the seasons. One of my favorite ones, which is very ironic because it has nothing to do with me. I've never watched a University of Miami Hurricane football game in my life.
Okay.
Still. But the two documentaries about
the U's.
Yeah,
that was
the U
fascinating.
and the U Part 2. Actually is Dwayne Johnson, by the way, in the U Part 2.
Right, because he played for him. Yeah, little known fact. He actually was on a D1 college team. But yeah, that was I never knew they started the whole trend of how they recruited because they realized every other college kind of already had dibs on certain regions of the country to recruit. Notre Dame got like the Midwest, and the Catholic kids, and USC got the kids from like SoCal and that sort of thing. And in Miami they realized it's all kind of dried up. But wait, kids who live in the ghetto, they're good, but everybody's afraid to scout their games.
Right,
people
they're afraid to go to the games.
Nobody wants to sit in the stands in like the hood. They think they're going to get they think they're going to get robbed. But then they got the idea like, well, what if we finally just got the balls to actually recruit these kids from bad neighborhoods? They're athletic kids, and that's how they got good, is by getting the kids everyone else was afraid to recruit.
Right.
And that's what's fascinating to realize they started that, because now, that's a good way out of the hood for a lot of people, is getting
but now
scouted.
a lot of people, I think nowadays it's a lot different because you can go to all these places. And you're a famous coach. No one's going to touch you.
Exactly, But the thing is, they
though,
started it, in the late 70s, early 80s. They were the first people to actually have the balls to scout kids from bad neighborhoods, and they started a revolution. Now everybody does that, but they were the first ones, and that's what gave them the edge, is where are they getting these kids that nobody else is touching?
State of Miami, they called it,
Yeah, exactly. They're brave enough to go to, the Liberty City, Miami, and Alapatha, Miami, and the bad parts of Miami, and then expand it to the other, rough neighborhoods in Florida.
Yeah, there's that one, and I have two more that I absolutely love that I actually would take inspiration from if I ever got a chance. Would be Broke, which is about athletes.
Oh, about a lot of athletes. They get the huge... Broke. Yeah, somehow.
It's really good. It's a really good look into...
Yeah, it's really kind of sad. It shows how these people go from on top of the world, and they just don't know how to handle the success, and they blow the money so quickly they don't know what to do.
And then there's people who take advantage of athletes who are just looking for and the leagues themselves. It also opens up an eye of why aren't they helping them?
Right, they should be doing.
The league has a list of these are really good accountants, these are really good lawyers.
Yeah, they should be referring.
These are
financial advisors
certified,
or something.
Right?
Yeah,
these are certified under our investigation into them. They're certified because there's stories about guys who were like, "Oh, my AAU coach is my power of attorney." It's like, what? Like, you do know what happens with, you know what I mean? So it's just a really good, insightful look into, they make millions of dollars, but are they really happy? One, and number two, do they ever really, what was it? I think it was Bart Scott was like, I had no idea what taxes were. Like, he got his check, he thought somebody stole from him.
Oh, so he was probably going okay, I made this much. Wait a minute, I signed a $4 million contract. How come it's only $33 million? So what the hell is this?
And it also brought to light how you can find out how much they make, which is kind of unfair because it's those guys, their salaries are posted in the paper every time there's a new contract, but ours would never get posted in the paper.
Yep, that's true. And we don't see how much, depending on where they play. Now you realize why players maybe choose a certain team when they're a free agent because of the tax laws in that.
I was going to say, loyalty is out the window in 2017 professional sports.
It's really rare to see that.
The NBA is the most famous examples because they got guys going all over.
I think Kobe Bryant might be the last superstar that will have spent his entire career.
Right, Duncan before him, and then Kobe Bryant retired the year after.
Kobe
Dirk Nowitzki is another one.
Yeah, Dirk is probably. That'd be kind of sad if
you would have thought Dwayne Wade, but he obviously.
He left Miami, but he wanted to go play for his hometown in Chicago, and now he's in Cleveland, so now it's totally out the window.
He's playing with LeBron just to win another ring.
Right, yeah.
Who knows if that's going to happen? Yep. I mean, I think, Paul Pierce with the Celtics.
I would have loved to see Paulie Pierce do that, but it was
retired to Celtic.
Yeah, he's still retired to Celtic, but he spent some time.
But he got traded though. Was that really
Brooklyn.
his choice?
Right, it wasn't. Yeah, he didn't jump the ship.
The worst trade in Brooklyn Nets history.
Right. Yeah.
Oh my God.
And then he played for his hometown. He went back to Los Angeles for the Clippers, and then it's nice at least that he retired as a Celtic, and they're going to put the number 34 up there with all the other very famous
And
Celtics.
he deserves it. Like, he was there the bad times. Like, he was there when the Celtics were terrible.
Yeah,
they finally got all the players together in 2008, and then they won that title.
Yeah, they raised him from the ground up. He was the only good spot on the team for most of the 2000s up until they finally they got Allen and Garnett put together the big
Speaking
three.
of the Celtics and 30 for 30, to try and combine their two topics here, that documentary,
yes,
Celtics,
Lakers,
that was that's the best one I've seen ever. Out of 30
yeah, and it's
a
3-part documentary, and I think my favorite was the first part was just how the rivalry started, like Magic getting drafted to Los Angeles, Larry getting drafted to Boston, and then the last one was the last couple of years. But the middle one I think was my favorite because it was only about 1984. Right. They talked about no other year. It was only about start to finish all 7 games of the 1984 finals, and that was so exciting, especially because as a Celtics fan, I was like, I'm pretty sure they won that year, but I don't want to look it up because this is so exciting. Right? I want to see
the documentary. Well, because they have and it's 3 parts, but they have 2 narrators. They have Ice Cube for Los Angeles.
Whenever they talk about the Lakers, they talk about somebody who grew up in L.A., Ice Cube, and then they have Mark Wahlberg, somebody who grew up in Boston, to do all the Celtics stuff.
I didn't know which one.
So that was pretty cool that it was like a native Boston actor and a native L.A. actor talked about the competing cultures of the team, because that was more than just a geographical rivalry. There was a lot of so many other storylines.
And it's kind of funny though. Like you hope that rivalry comes back, but I don't think there can be a legit rivalry in the NBA nowadays, other than Golden State Cleveland, because they met in the finals 3 times. But they're not even really a rivalry. They just are a rival because they've gone 3 years now playing in the finals. But that will never happen again. What happened in the 80s between the Celtics and the Lakers, I don't think that'll ever have that animosity towards one team. Right. Mm-hmm. I don't think will ever happen.
People
in
are kind of friendly.
Sports.
Yeah, and they talk to people
right at the end of the third one, they were talking like you just said. Like
Larry and Magic were like, we didn't want to make super teams. We wanted to play each other. We couldn't wait to beat the shit out of each other.
Right.
they
like, we're friendly now. It's like, no, that would never have
now
happened.
They're just too friendly, and it's not how it was.
Right,
in
they're
the
all
80s.
friends. Like Dwayne Wade and Chicago and Cleveland were never going to be a rival because LeBron and Dwayne were besties. Right. And then Derrick Rose was the best.
Even when there might be 1 or 2 games, they were shoving each other a little bit, that cools off real quick. Oh yeah. Just one road trip, everybody forgets about it, and it's no longer a storyline.
Right. I would hate to say it, but I don't. Obviously, it's not as high. But Cleveland, Boston, seems like it's somewhat of a rivalry. Well, now even more because Irving went from Cleveland to Boston, but
which was a surprising
Boston
thing.
Hasn't been able to get past Cleveland in a long time. Yeah, it used to be the other way around, which is kind of ironic.
In the late 2000s, early 2010s, when LeBron was still struggling with Cleveland, it was like that. It was,
and then Miami. They went to Miami, and then it became now it's to Miami
in Boston. But then Boston just finally got old. Allen and Garnett and Pierce,
which they were going to,
which of course, that was to be expected. But
and it's just kind of funny how you really can't find a good rivalry. I know in sports in general, the football teams, the college level is really where you because it's just school. But you're never going to have another Miami, Miami, Florida State, or Miami, get Florida. You're not going to have those kind of rivalries either because those kids leave so quick. You're not going to have a Duke, North Carolina. Those kids leave so quick, and it's the only reason college has rivalries because the schools are the rivals, not the players.
It's more so the student body and the history of the school.
Right. It's not the players having hate for each other. You don't have Christian Laettner going back at North Carolina anymore. It's nothing like that. No player really stays the full 4 years anymore unless they're not good enough to be a number 1 pick in the NBA draft. Which, go back to your point about the Miami recruiting. Those kids are so good, they're only going to go 1 year, and the only reason they're going for 1 year is just because the league says you can't come right from high school.
Right, yeah, they need to get noticed by a professional, and then they need to start making money as to what their strategy is.
Which I guess another topic is, what do you think about the NBA maybe going back to where you can draft high schoolers? Because that's been a talk of the recently is that.
Yeah, when did they stop that? Because it was still the early 2000s.
Kobe was a high schooler.
Yeah,
LeBron's
Kobe,
a high schooler.
Kevin Garnett.
I think LeBron was probably the last one.
Okay.
I would think. I can't think of anyone else. Off the
I
top
just
of my
remember
head.
this. I heard the story. Kevin Garnett was at prom when all of a sudden, like, they announced over, Kevin Garnett, please come to the office, and he's like, "Shit, what did I do now?" And they're like, "Oh, the Minnesota Timberwolves want to talk to you," and they're like, "We're taking you first overall, kid. Enjoy prom." Oh, thanks. It's cool.
This girl was definitely not the point of his night that night. But yeah, that'd be that call. I mean, obviously we're never gonna get that call, but that's gotta be like.
Yeah, imagine that. You're
I mean,
just
unless
like,
ESPN is drafting people and we get the call from ESPN.
right.
But
But yeah, imagine being just a high school. You're at prom. Your mind is totally preoccupied on other things in high school life and
Right.
stuff, and then all of a sudden you get a call basically guaranteeing you're about to be an extremely famous 18-year-old multimillionaire.
Right.
Congratulations.
Which again, with this it's kind of funny how we're random, but we're kind of tying in. It's like the Broke documentary.
It's about how that's why
You know,
a lot of people
things,
go
like,
broke, because they
have
go from
no idea. They go from
Right.
0 to a millionaire,
And when
they
you
don't
don't-
know how to get there. Like if we ever
Yeah.
got $1 million check, we would know how to. Okay,
Right,
we'd use some of it to pay off bills. We'd put some away for
Right.
future, and
Yeah.
then we'd have some for ourselves to live comfortably. We would never
You-
just throw it all at one thing. Be like, oh, I want a yacht or a boat.
We
or
know
a
what
car.
it's like to like have to save and struggle, because we had like those high school after
Days.
college years, and then we
Right.
had like an education when a kid goes right from like having nothing to having everything. They don't get the education. They don't know what it's like to struggle with the minimum wage job. So of course, you know, that happens. And you're right. I think they really ought to pressure the leagues even more to be like, tell these guys how to handle themselves a
Right,
little bit.
have
Get them an
a-
accountant or something. Get them a financial advisor.
Just have a book.
Yeah.
Just say, okay, we did our investigation. These are certified. These are guys we trust into for accountants, for lawyers, for everything. Like everything that you would need, and then have have a class or have a thing for new rookies saying adjusting to a millionaire's life or something to that effect. You can't tell me these leagues making billions of dollars a year can't put aside a good chunk of money
Yeah,
to set up this class.
to financially educate some of their
252 people. Obviously, not all of them are going to make it, but you have 252 men, boys, some of them, getting drafted in the NFL over 4 days. You can't tell me you can't have a class for anyone who wants to take it. I would assume they'd force them to take it because they don't want the problem, but. I mean, it's just, you gotta, I mean, and then these guys are gonna be like, oh, I don't need this. It's like, yeah, you do. And then they could show them perfect examples of, like, this is what happens, this is, like, and then go through all the drug problems, the money problems, people going after you saying, oh, you owe me this, or something like that. You know, it was funny from that Broke documentary, Bernie Kosar. I never knew he was, because, again, he was with Miami the U during the first documentary. He was a big part of that one. And they were going on about how he was having money issues, and his dad was like, I guess had signed a contract with the Browns, and he made money off of Bernie Kosar off his son, and then like his family was always asking him for money, and he'd say, "Oh, just take it, yeah, it's fine, and then it just kept accumulating, and eventually he was broke. So it's like. It's even your family members will try to take advantage of you when you make a lot of money, and it's just funny to think like, doesn't just because you're $1 million athlete, that doesn't mean you're exempt from all these issues that normal people have on a daily basis.
Right, and that's just sad to know that people's families were. I bet if they would have asked nicely, it would have been like, "Hey, can you help your family out a little bit?"
Right.
They would give you a little bit, but like to really try to pull a fast one and take full advantage of the people that you know.
Right,
It's just sad that people do that.
Son.
Yeah, your own son, you're screwing him out of his money.
I could never imagine my dad doing that to me.
Right.
Like, I make a lot of money, and he comes up to me and says, yeah, give me some of that, give me some of that, give me some of that.
Yeah, it'd be one thing if they were asking nicely, "Hey, we got to pay off, this car. We really need to pay out this credit
once,
card."
though. Like,
yeah,
only, you do that every
once.
once. Like, oh, I can't pay my rent. I can't
But
pay
if
my
you're
car.
just
It's like,
immediately
do you make money?
leeching off your kid, it's
Right.
like, without their permission, or like trying to steal from them. That's just sad that some people do that.
Right. And now to jump to a totally different thing, just more of a country, it's like, what do you think about U.S. soccer not making the World Cup for the first time in 32
now
years?
the U.S. already has enough of a problem with their, television ratings. They don't care about the World Cup. Usually the one thing that brought a few people in was, well, let's root for the States. Let's see how the Americans do. We know they're not going to win this thing, but let's see if the Americans can just get a little closer every year.
Right.
But now that there's not that, like, I don't even want to know. And where is the World Cup being held this year? Yeah, okay. I thought so. It was in Russia. Yeah, so that, and it's going to be a totally different time zone, so the games are going to be on at weird times.
Gonna watch it,
Exactly. There's a small, growing, like, intense, almost cult-like following of like hipsters who like soccer around here. Some people wake up at like 6 a.m. to go to some random bar and watch the Premier League.
Right. But yeah, it's like,
but
they're making a huge deal about it, and I'm just sitting here like, does it matter? Like, I don't watch soccer.
Right.
I don't care about soccer.
Yeah, I guess the reason it's a big deal
only time would be in the Olympics,
because that's the World Cup is a lot of times the only time
exposure
Americans do watch it. Now, like they're not going to have a country. I mean, people like to root for their heritage. I got a lot of like Italian American friends are going to root for the Italians, and German American friends and family who are going to root for the Gers.
If they're in it, I don't even know.
Yeah, they probably are. Usually, Western Europe is good.
Well, everyone says America's usually in it, but
well, they're usually in it, but they're not good. The Germans just won it a little while ago. The Italians won it back in 2006, and so
the only one I remember watching is the one where the guy headbutted.
Oh yeah, that was France.
This was his last game.
2006, France versus Italy. The captain of France comes over and headbutts some Italian in the chest.
Right? That's the only thing I remember about. The only significant soccer I've ever seen, other than when Buffalo had their own indoor.
The Blizzard.
Team, the Buffalo
Blizzard. Yeah, I went to a lot of those games in my youth.
Those were awesome.
They were a lot of fun and they were really cheap, so they would like pack it with a lot of kids who were like playing youth soccer, and it was just fun.
It'd be like a Bandits game, but soccer.
Yeah, and it was really high scoring because the field was so small. Yeah, it was a nice little thing. It's too bad that and I remember they were good at hosting birthday parties. They knew how to market the kids. They were a well-run business.
Right.
But I think it wasn't. Even though the team was doing well, still selling a lot of tickets, overall the league folded, and that's why they couldn't be around. But that was cool.
Yeah, and it's just it makes me think of like teams that Buffalo has had, or maybe just in general that have been around that have folded for one reason or another. And the one that comes to mind again is the Buffalo Destroyers, the indoor.
Yes, the indoor. My dad used to sing the national anthem for them every once in a while, so I would get in for free. But yeah, that was that was cool too. The arena and that league is still around. I don't know why.
Cleveland's got a team.
The Cleveland.
Seen them a few times.
The Cleveland Crush, the Cleveland Gladiators, and then I think there's like the Chicago Crush and the New Orleans something. I don't know. There's a bunch of random cities that have indoor football teams, but they're good because it's like just really fast-paced, really high-scoring football.
Right.
And there's a lot of souvenirs, and by that I mean like the ball goes flying into the stands.
Right, or the people,
really
or the
often.
guys.
Right, yeah, or the players themselves.
I remember
to get out of bounds, it's not like you step out of bounds. You got to like dive partly into the stands to prove you're out of bounds.
I remember the one. Oh, was it the championship game or a playoff game? Like the guy was they were punting the ball or kicking the ball off, and the guy was against the wall, and a fan like grabbed him or something.
And like bear hugs him from behind.
Yeah,
oh my god!
Try and stop him from getting the ball. Like that, and I just wish that like Buffalo could have another one of those sports. Like we got the Bandits. I would love another team like that.
Right, because we have success with indoor sports like that. And back when there was a roller hockey league, I was really little, but I remember, or at least my dad tells me, he took me to see them win the championship. The Buffalo Stampede was a roller hockey team, and we saw them win the cup.
The roller hockey cup.
Roller hockey. But I was 3 years old, and it was the day of the famous O.J. White Bronco chase. And I remember everybody was talking about it. I was only 3 years old, but I kind of remember picturing, why is everybody talking about some orange juice and a white horse? Why are all these adults freaking out about orange juice riding a horse?
Right.
And it was because everybody's like, see that OJ's in it? And I like would look at the TV and it was just like some cars, and I was like, that's not orange juice and a horse. What are these people talking about?
You guys must be drunk.
Yeah, if I even know what that was when I was like 4 years old. But still, yeah, the day that the Buffalo Stampede roller hockey team won the championship.
June 13th, 1994.
I guess so.
Because June 13th, because I think there's ironically going back
30 for 30.
30.
That's the most interesting 30 for 30 because there's no narration whatsoever. All it is just a bunch of news clips from that exact date. June 13th, 1994.
Because there's a few things going on.
So many things. Yeah, it was Arnold Palmer's last game, the O.J. chase, of course, the New York Rangers championship parade in Manhattan. The New York Knicks were in, I think, a Game 7 against the the Houston Rockets, who eventually won the championship that year. A couple of other amazing sports things. Oh, it was the opening ceremonies or the closing ceremonies of the '94 Olympics and or the World Cup, maybe. I don't know, some kind of world.
This is why we call it random people.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I mean, we might as
sometimes.
well. This is the year 2000. We all have pieces of glass in our pocket that can answer these questions.
I got a pad of paper in front of me with some things written down. But yeah, the pad of the piece of glass.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what these things are, basically smartphones.
Yeah. I mean, I got it. Mine's recording my voice. You got a phone recording yours. You got a tablet in front of you. I feel so left out. I have nothing in front of me that can brighten my knowledge. While you're looking that, while you're looking that up, let's just we can come back to it. Recently, the Pittsburgh Penguins, who won the Stanley Cup this past season, they visited the White House, which has actually become like a thing of controversy, obviously with Donald Trump being the
right. I remember
president.
It used to not be. There used to maybe be one or two players per team who would be. There'd be like, because of my politics, I do not want to shake George Bush's hand. I do not want to shake Obama's hand. But now you got entire teams boycotting Donald Trump.
Well, Trump now even told them they're not even allowed to come.
Right, which is a very him thing, whether you like him or not, a very him thing to do, even before he was a politician.
Right, and
he was like, you can't fire me, I quit. That was kind of his thing. Like, nobody could say anything bad about him, because he would be like, well, I said a bad thing about you first, so I win.
Right.
That's just kind of his attitude. Even if you like him, you got to admit, like, that is his shtick. That's been his shtick since The Apprentice and probably before then.
Right, it's probably been his whole livelihood. That's how he does
right,
things.
Yeah, that's just how he does
and,
things.
Yeah, it's just brought up the thoughts, like, does it, like, it's got to be a bummer if you're on, like, the Golden State Warriors and, like, you've been looking forward to, no matter who's
maybe you're not a political person, but you just liked the whole point of the... Because it's not supposed to be about, we support this president's politics. It's about the symbol of just seeing the head of state and being at the White House,
right.
you know. Because he's not supposed to be head of the government at that point. He's supposed to be head of state, just represent America and, like, show off and hold up the jersey with his name and go, oh, you guys are awesome, this is so cool.
Yeah.
It's just a photo op. That's all it's supposed to be, but...
yeah,
so it would be disappointing for... on either side, if maybe somebody who is in the staff of the West Wing who's like, damn, I really wanted to meet Steph Curry, or somebody who's in the staff of the team was like, I wanted to see the inside of the Oval Office in the West Wing and the Rose Garden and that.
Yeah, and it's just like, because of what you think, it's like, I don't know. It seems like, and then another thing obviously going on right now with Trump and sports is the NFL player protests, which I think have been blown totally out of proportion, because from what I understand, which obviously is take it with a grain of salt, maybe a whole stack of salt cubes. What I understand is that this all started with Colin Kaepernick,
right? It was
last year,
one player last year,
and he was kneeling because of police brutality,
right,
and racial inequality.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. That was what he was doing. That's what he was protesting. He was doing it peacefully. He was doing it again.
Right, even if you disagree, you got to admit this is a very peaceful way to do it.
He just kneels there in the anthem. Now it's turned into they disrespected the flag, and it's like, well, no, I mean...
You kind of took that the wrong way, people who assume that, yeah.
Because it's probably newsworthy.
And
now every football game, you see the shots of players kneeling down, and people... It's just
then the president kind of did it to himself. Like, this year it was going to be, all right, it's starting to kind of blow over, all right, this is not an issue anymore.
Colin's not playing.
Right, Kaepernick's the guy who started it isn't even playing. A few people are doing it, and then the president said something like to hell with anybody who...
Right, stand for your flag, yada, yada, yada. And
right,
it's just like,
and that just made basically more than half the league do it, which is like he brought that on himself. So
because I was at the game afterwards. It was the week of the Denver game.
Okay, I was at that game. I missed the most of the first quarter, but I was.
You were probably sneaking in
at that game. Well, I did get in for free. It wasn't. I didn't sneak in. I just found a cheap ticket that somebody wasn't using at the last minute.
Right. But, no, I wouldn't judge you if you did anyways. But, no, yeah, and right before the game, like, everyone's everybody, I think. I know all the Bills either kneeled or put their hands on someone who was kneeling, and I think the other side did it too.
That's a good way to show solidarity.
It was a huge booing point.
Oh, okay.
All the fans were booing it, and... My thing is like, well, now what is it about? Is it about they don't support Trump? Is it about
I think at this point,
original message, which is
I think it's far from the original message. Now it was especially the week that happened when like half the league did it. It was
Right.
basically like just saying the president can't tell us what to do,
Right.
and even people
it was
who
a sign of
liked
solidarity of the NFL.
of the
not
NFL
of,
itself, just saying like, because even people who like the president, you got to admit, like that's just a dumb thing to say. Like, you're not making any friends. You're just getting
No,
people
you're
more
just
pissed off
getting more
if you're,
enemies.
yeah, if you're gonna like try to boss people around like that. You
Right,
know?
which is his persona.
That's been his shtick since way before he even thought about being a
You're
politician.
fired. Anyways, but yeah, and it's and that poor former Navy guy from Pittsburgh, who went out and was the only Steeler.
Yeah,
I guess,
the Steelers
and
decided
they blew it out of proportion. But the Steelers were standing right there, like 20 feet behind him, and it was just like now people are saying, "See that guy? He stands for the flag, the Pittsburgh Steelers." And he's like, and then everyone was like, "Oh, he's not a team player because he didn't do what the team
right.
wanted."
So both sides were pissed at him. People were either saying he's disrespecting his team because he was the only one not doing that, or some people were saying, he's the only one who
Right.
respected the.
And there's one simple solution to this that they will never do:
And what's that?
make the players come out after the anthem.
Oh, okay.
Which
So
is
like
the
not
way
even.
it used
Huh.
to be. The
Oh, really?
reason, and you're gonna love this one.
Hmm.
I looked this up, so I know my facts. The reason that the players are out there before the national anthem, or to put their hand on their heart and everything like that,
Mm-hmm.
is because way back in the day, the Army and the Navy and all the
The armed forces.
right, were looking for ways to recruit new people.
Oh,
So they said to the NFL, put your players out there, make them. Well, I don't know if they say made them, but like there was an agreement that the players would get out there to somehow subconsciously want to make football fans want to join the Army, Navy, and
Oh,
enlist.
so this whole time it was just a recruiting
It's a recruiting
tool.
scheme, and I think it was the early 2000s is when it started.
Really?
Because way back in the day, the players weren't out there until after the national anthem.
Oh, okay. So
And
they were still warming up in the locker room, which kind of makes sense because it just before the players are out there, it doesn't slow the game down. It just gives the fans something to react to
Right.
while the players are still getting
Exactly.
ready.
And,
yeah.
and there would be no more protests because they
Wow.
wouldn't be out there. There would be no more issues. There would be no more disrespecting the flag. There would be no more crying, whining, and bitching
Wow.
about this. Just make them sit in the locker room. They probably want to be in the locker room anyways. They
probably
you can
want
still
as
do your
much
introductions. Just do
more
them
time
after.
to prepare. Right.
Exactly.
Yeah. Interesting.
And
I never knew that they was the whole time. It was just a recruiting tool that was relatively recently
right. It was.
implemented.
I don't know if it. I think it was in the early 2000s. I think I'm not exactly.
That
sure.
makes sense because a
The
lot
pieces
of
of glass in front of me would tell me, but I'm using all three of them.
right.
But,
a lot of because of 9/11, a lot of things, sports especially,
Exactly.
got really
Right.
extra like
That,
patriotic.
honestly, that probably makes sense timeline wise.
Okay, yeah.
9/11.
Right, yeah, and then start the Afghanistan Iraq wars and that
Right.
trying to recruit
that would
more
make
people.
total sense for that.
Right, because they used to not in baseball. Of course, they'd sing the national anthem, but there used to not be during like the seventh inning singing "God Bless America." But now, ever since 9/11, the Yankee Stadium, they always have sing the whole version of, which is a long version of "God Bless America," like hand on the heart type of thing. It has not stopped since 9/11, so it just shows how much that changed sports.
God bless America. I work for the Rochester Red Wings, which is the
AAA
baseball team in Rochester.
Twins affiliate, right?
Twins. Yep.
Soda Twins.
Yep. And they do that too. They do the national anthem before the game, and then they do the God bless America, the seventh inning stretch.
Okay.
And I've thought to myself, why do I need to take my hat off, and why do I need to put my hand on my heart? It's God bless America. It's not the national anthem. So I've always thought, like, is it wrong or right to leave my hat on and not pay respect for God bless America? Now I do it during the national anthem. I'm in outfield. Nobody sees me. It's not like a protest.
Okay, so you're on the camera is what your job.
Right, I'm behind the camera. Nobody sees me and everything like that. But during God Bless America, I really don't, take my hat off. Or I don't think. I mean, maybe because I'm working. That could be one thing. Too.
Yeah, that's another thing too. You're not there for pleasure. You're there for business.
Right, and it's more got me thinking. It's like, well, does the God Bless America get the treatment of no hat and hand on the heart and everything like that? And I was just curious what you thought about that.
Oh, I don't know. Well, like I said again, that is not like this long honored tradition. That just started because of 9/11. Like they used to not do that, but now they kind of. And at the time, it was appropriate, I think, to inject the extra patriotism. People were like hungry for some way to just feel, pride in a very hurt America at the time. But at this point, yeah, I think it might be a little overblown, and people already talk about baseball, especially the game is too slow, like
too long,
too long, too slow.
So, getting around to probably about the end of the podcast, but what do you think about these our Buffalo sports teams? Now that we've seen both teams play a little bit, and kind of disappointed in both a little bit. But what do you think?
There's still hope for the Bills. That's not a complete. It's not like well, they lost to Cincy and it's over. Yeah,
Bills are gonna win and it's gone.
And it's gone.
South Park reference.
Yep, that's right.
I got those references.
Oh, we could put your money in this stock, and it's gone.
What? I got $100 in a checking account. Oh, let me take a look at it, and it's gone. And then some old lady comes up, and I was like, and it's gone.
Right.
Gone.
It's nice that Jackie Jack signed the extension, because that was, I mean, I wouldn't say I was really worried, but I was starting to get a little nervous, like, oh, geez, I hope this guy doesn't pull like a Eric Lindros and is like, I need to get to a bigger team immediately, get me out of this small town.
Well, yeah, he's all about the respect. He's like, no, I want to win it. I want to do it here.
No, that's cool. Yeah, that's just really nice to know, because I have seen him in public a couple times, and he's a very introverted guy. He's not like a super friendly type of dude. Like, I guess we were spoiled with how much fun the mid-2000s Sabres were. They were some nice guys, you know. Right. They were really friendly, love signing autographs. Jack is like, he'll sign autographs, and he's not mean, but he's just really...
He's a 20-year-old.
Yeah,
he's a millennial.
So, like,
heart,
he'll be kind of, like, embarrassed in public. I notice if somebody wants to, like, take a picture or shake his hand, he'll kind of, like, put his head down, like, oh, God. You know. Which some people will probably inevitably interpret that as like, he's such a jerk. He's not a jerk. He just doesn't know how to handle this fame.
He didn't sign my piece of paper when I was plastered. He's a jerk.
Yeah, I did. One time all these people, I saw him in Toronto. It was for the World Cup of Hockey. I was there for the Toronto Film Fest, but they were on the same weekend. And he walked by, and all these like people were like, Jack, but they weren't from Buffalo. They were from Toronto, and he was just kind of like waved, and he wouldn't sign anything or shake their hand. But I yelled, Jack, I'm from Buffalo! And then he stopped, and then he shook my hand, and it was cool. I was like, yes, that's what it took.
That's all it takes. You just gotta say you're from Buffalo, even if you're from
all the Toronto boys they looked at me so jealous. They were like, how'd you get him to stop? I was like, I told him I was from Buffalo. They were like, damn it.
Good idea, dude.
Yeah.
We have a bunch of stories of like when we were younger, going to the practices and stuff.
Yeah, we were.
Finneganov was always my favorite because he was our height, but talked like a 6'9" guy.
Yeah, he had that deep Russian
accent.
Yeah. And some of the guys were really friendly. What we would do was we would take, because we lived close enough to the arena, we could take the bus down to the arena. Early in the morning on weekends or weekdays that we had off, we'd watch the Sabres practice, which only like a couple people knew about. There's always like just a few dozen people there. Eventually it got overcrowded, and we were like Yogi Bear. It's so crowded, nobody goes there anymore. You know? But when we first started doing that, nobody really knew about it, so it was cool. We were like, wow, nobody knows about this. And then once the players would start getting ready, go back to the locker room, we'd go out of the arena, run back to the parking lot, get like, an autograph book or something, and get them to sign some merchandise. Because on the way out, if you waved to their car, if they weren't in a hurry, a lot of them were friendly enough to stay and sign. So we got a lot of cool autographs, got to talk with a lot of them, and got to kind of get to know the personalities. Like, okay, that guy always stops. That guy stops, signs a couple. That guy usually blows everybody off, But
right,
some of
Miller,
the,
you know who you are now.
Right? No, Miller was not.
Miller was one of the nice
he
guys.
was unique because he wouldn't. He was probably protective of his car because he did have some nice Cadillac or something. So he wouldn't. Most of them would do it
walk down
like
the line, go to his car, and drive
right.
out.
Yeah, most of them it was like a drive-through. They'd drive up, roll their window down, and then like you'd pass some stuff and they'd sign everything and go. But he would like walk up, sign everything, then go to his car and then leave.
Yeah, and then the one person who showed up after he did the walkthrough line would be like, he's a jerk, so he didn't even stop.
Right, yeah.
Oh, what was another one?
Then
Brian Soup Campbell.
Yeah, usually the Americans
really nice.
And the Canadians were really friendly. The Europeans, I don't know, that might not be like as much of a custom like autographs in Eastern Europe because some of the Euros would like give us these looks like, why are everyone lined up outside the arena?
Do you want my autograph?
Yeah, what are they waiting
for? Like a bill?
Yeah, I have not signed any contract. Like, no, this is not a contract, Dimitri. This is because Dimitri Kalinin would never stop, and probably that just might not be a thing in Russia. But the one European who was really funny, Alec Kotelik, I remember he was signing, and some kid behind us goes, "You have the best slap shot in the league," and he goes, "Yes, but it is all I got."
Oh yeah, let's go to league, man.
Yeah.
He was a shootout guy too, right?
Yeah, he was the expert in the shootout. He was
He had one move.
Yeah, he had kind of one. He had a good slap shot, and he had this great shootout move. But besides that, he was kind of like, for a big dude, he was like well over 6 foot. He was pretty heavy, but like he never hit anybody. It was like, really,
Come on, dude.
that's what a waste of a body. You got a
Right.
good shot. If you could just use your body a little bit, you'd be a complete player. But
I think the Sabres, everyone's got to have some patience because
Okay.
new coach, a lot of new faces.
that's true. A lot of very
mean,
young faces.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Either too young or too old, kind of. Because like
right.
Gianta, is he still on the team?
No, Giannis is no longer on the team. Oh, not that I know, but I know he wants to play in the Olympics. So
Right,
because
this year,
Rochester.
right, because this year they're doing the old rules of the Olympics where you can't be a professional. So a lot of people who just retired are probably going to be on a lot of teams.
Right. Yeah, and that's an interesting point. Maybe a little bit close to the Olympic podcast. We'll look into that.
Yeah, we can talk about it now, though. It is something I'm very interested in. I love, out of all the like sports events that come along, international hockey is by far one of my absolute favorites. I love the World Juniors, but I especially love the Olympics. I love international hockey tournaments.
Right. Yeah, and I think it brings out the best. I think it's the best like hockey because
Yeah,
I mean the NHL does a great job of doping down the product. so it's like
yeah, and everybody, at least the big seven, are always all-star teams. You got your Americans, Canadians, Russians, Swedish, Finland, Czech Republic, and Slovakia. The big,
come up with a seven.
right? No, yeah, the big seven. And maybe Slovakia. Slovakia has a couple of good stars and a bunch of like
right,
a bunch of nobody, but everybody else.
Nice job saying with the accent too.
Yeah, the big six, they always have really deep teams. It's like a whole bunch of all-star teams on there, so that it's way more competitive than like basketball. Because even if another random country puts together a good team, you know that they're not beating the United States.
U.S. have one goal. I think it was like
only 2004 is the only time they ever like lost the gold in recent memory.
Yeah. But yeah, it's
and
fun.
Canada does win more than everybody else, but it's always a good competition. They never roll over all the other teams.
Like,
they always get a good fight from either Sweden, Russia, the United States, or Finland.
Right. And obviously that's coming here this year. The Buffalo hosting
yes,
the World Juniors this year.
World Juniors.
Yeah, and I went to USA Canada last time it was here. That was a bummer because there was 4-1.
Really?
They couldn't win. They couldn't score.
Geez.
But I did go to USA. I can't think of who it was. I know I went to 2 games. It was it was 2 games like right in a row, and it was Canada and USA were in both of them, but like they didn't play each other. They were playing other teams. I know one was Switzerland because it was the Red Cross. So I know one of them, or maybe I the Red
they're
Cross.
usually a good like sleeper team. They've never had like a ton of good NHLers, but they always like manage to upset at least one person in.
And then I don't know who USA was playing, but it was pretty cool. Everyone was chanting USA. It was a really cool atmosphere.
That must be cool to be in an international.
The only problem was when they played
atmosphere.
Canada, there's a lot more Canadians than USA.
Right,
so when
yeah,
you try to train USA, it'd be Canada.
Yeah,
Canada.
the Canucks would outnumber us because they're willing to spend. And it's they're as rabid a hockey fans as there are here. We're just now as willing to part with our money like they
Oh, God, no.
Those people shell out some money to see
Oh, and
this.
it was just funny. I was sitting there in the 300s watching USA Canada, and I was in a section of Canadians.
Okay.
I really didn't care. I was just there for the experience. I knew
Right.
America wasn't going to win. They weren't. I mean, they won the year before, but I didn't think like.
They just didn't have the same kind of team.
Right, they didn't have well, I watched them yesterday, and they were struggling to score against that team, and it was like, well, this is Canada. They're a little bit more up in competition. But anyways, so we were sitting there, and it was like every Canadian thought they were a coach. It was like everyone was screaming, pass it there! No, you're supposed to pass it there! And I was just sitting there like, oh my God, can you just watch? Like, you're not on the ice. Let them play.
Right.
Well, I think that just about wraps up. We got about an hour there, and I think that's about that time. So I think this is gonna develop into something. I think.
Yeah, it was a nice first
I think our
recording.
families are gonna listen, and that will spread out.
That'll be good enough.
Right,
Yep.
and so yeah, everyone listening, you can check down all our social media links in the description below. I know we have a Facebook because I've already set it up. we're hoping to get up a Twitter, Instagram, a Tinder. No, I'm just joking. But swipe left.
Who wants to date this show?
No, date the logo I came up with.
Date the logo, the animated.
You know what, dude? It's Tinder. They'll date anybody.
Yeah,
but no, I have a Patreon account I'm hoping to set up as well. Which Patreon, if nobody knows, is a account where you can actually donate your money right to us. If you like our show, if you like the topics, if you want to help us improve it a little bit. Not that we're not doing a pretty good job now, but we like to upgrade our equipment to studio microphones, a mixer, stuff like that would be helpful. Patreon account, and everything else. You guys like us on Facebook. I know we're called at random, but if you have a topic you think me and Trevor could delve into and talk about at length, you're more than welcome to, and we'll obviously give you that shout out, which is what most people want nowadays. Are their names set on something popular?
Just the recognition.
For Trevor Dugan, my name's Alec PInterpe. Thank you for listening at random, and of course, look for these podcast postings randomly.